From WABE in Atlanta, this is Closer Look. I'm Rose Scott. Here's a question for everybody that's listening that can hear the sound of my voice. Think about your first home or your first apartment. Think about how much you paid in rent. Think about what your mortgage was. And then think about today, especially here in Atlanta. Housing affordability. Depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer in terms of solutions. How do we fix it? How do we address it? What are the options, especially for a city like Atlanta? Well, I am honored today because our guest is Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, and if you want to call it a housing crisis, a housing challenge, Atlanta is not unique. A lot of cities throughout the nation are grappling with housing affordability, and so today we take a deeper dive into what the Dickens administration is doing in terms of programs and initiatives and continued challenges. So I welcome in Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Back in the back, talk about the Olympics and basketball and all
that. Yeah. The Olympics are going well. I'm loving it. And you're right to call it, it's a crisis. I don't know what others call it, but I call it a housing crisis.
Let's go back a little bit. Your first apartment here in Atlanta, where was it? How much was it? And did you pay the rent or did mom pay the rent?
So I was in college at Georgia Tech, and I lived off of Howell Mill Road at Collier and Howell Mill. There is some apartments that's there now, but it used to be called Jade East. They've since torn down Jade East, and rightfully so, because when I was there, the rent was $600 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It was $600. So my roommate and I shared that $300 a piece. It wasn't the best quality conditions. The carpet was blue and it was kind of damp all the time. And it just seemed like it was just moisture in the apartment all the time. But
did you do a mold test to see?
We were in college. We were just trying to get through calculus and physics and thermodynamics. So we were living. But it was those days are long gone. That's Howell Mill. It wasn't even called West Midtown back then. Yeah. This is a new version of Collier and Howell Mill. And so you see how those rents have maybe quadrupled since then.
$600 a month. I don't think you can find anything within this region for $600 a month, 1 bedroom. Maybe you can share something.
Yeah.
Everybody's paying $600.
You won't find it. No.
Often when we talk about, we chronicle Atlanta and how it's changed, people use the Olympics as the benchmark. After the Olympics, when a lot of development came in, Atlanta was on the map. People saw Atlanta as a place for development, particularly a lot of tech firms moving here. But is that a good gauge to determine what has happened with Atlanta, the good and the bad as it relates to housing affordability? Did this really start after the Olympics?
I don't know if it started exclusively after the Olympics. It might have started a little bit before that. Atlanta was becoming prominent internationally as we were getting towards the Olympics. The music scene was taking off. People, folks that were graduating these great colleges and universities, the AUC, they were staying in Atlanta. They weren't leaving. And so production of housing didn't keep up with demand at that time as much as the same as now. And so I think the Olympics really was a huge catalyst on top of all those other factors. But I think, that's why we're being very careful about the World Cup and about all the other things that we have coming here, because we don't want these things to just happen to Atlanta. We want them to happen with Atlanta, and that's not to be caught by surprise when, these us becoming a victim of our own success. And so I think 96 might be a good marker, but I don't think it's exclusively to the Olympics.
Before we take a deeper dive into your administration's initiatives and programs, I want to talk about in terms of how you came into office, because we played that clip election night when you were elected, and you talked about, you laid out all the systemic challenges. People working at the airport, but still they're working because they're trying to afford a rent. People trying to stay in their homes. What was your approach coming into your first term here in terms of determining how you lay out the blueprint for this? Because your predecessor, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, she had a One Atlanta Housing Initiative, something like that. What was your approach, your process for determining this is how we're going to do this?
Yeah, mine was an all of the above approach. It was as I said, from can't see morning to can't see night. Like literally, we're gonna go through this every single day, pushing the agenda forward. So when I spoke about folks working at the airport or people that have more month than money, they can't afford their rent, my solution isn't just housing. My solution is that on affordability, there is the housing component and it's the income component. So we increase salaries of the people working at the airport by talking to Delta and talking to others to say pay these people more money, but it's also about the production of housing. So we created a strike force, and I created the strike force because I knew that people that invested in Atlanta knew what they were doing. I knew that people at Atlanta Housing knew what they were doing. Folks at the Beltline, people at the Land Bank, but they weren't always coordinated, and they had many different various visions and missions, and some of them were risk averse. And for me, I said we can't be. We have to take off all these bureaucracies and red tape, and you all essentially, not being arrogant about it, but you all right now report to the mayor of Atlanta, because I'm the one that set a 20,000 unit goal of affordability to be able to produce or to renovate 20,000 units of housing. And the way you're doing it, we're not going to get there in time. And that's no diss to them. It was just really just the strategy was not looking at publicly owned land, and it was looking at financing that wasn't layered and braided. So we came out of the gate based on the experience that I've had on the city council and the work that we've done in the nonprofit sector. I was able to look at this challenge holistically and say, all of us working together will produce the result, but individually you won't get there.
You mentioned obviously it takes a holistic approach, and I think we have a graphic here for those in our studio audience. The city of Atlanta, look at that. Beautiful city, right?
Right.
But that approach, you have to do it in pockets, Mayor, because what may work in the north side may not work in southwest Atlanta, or what might work for East Atlanta may not work in Midtown. Yeah. By the way, can you, I don't know if you can do this, but can you tell people that we are not changing West End to Upper West End? Stop saying that. It's going to be West End and that's it.
Yeah,
we already got West Midtown and South Buckhead.
Well, you know who comes up with that are the realtors. Now
we're gonna find them if they start putting that on any brochure.
Now we got Upper West Side, which is fine, but we're not gonna call it Upper West End. West End is gonna be West End.
Well, to that point, because when you look at this city, look, you are from the city. This is your city, so every initiative or program may not work in different areas. How, through your administration, are you making sure that you're meeting the individual needs for said community? Or some will say, you know what, don't do that. If you have ordinances, if you have a blueprint where a developer is going to be in the mall near the West End or Midtown, this is the incentives you need to understand.
Yeah, Rose, you're hitting the nail on the head. The hardest job of being mayor is managing the competing interests of different people. The west side and the southwest side is different than the east side and the northeast and the northwest. Folks in Atlanta sometimes just slim it down to Bankhead versus Buckhead. I wish it was that easy. We have about 6 different dynamics within Atlanta.
Well, parts of Bankhead are starting to look like Buckhead in terms of the rents.
You're right,
the
right.
So.
I saw some $700,000 town.
Who's living over there?
Well, somebody that can afford $700,000, and that was different.
And we'll get to the legacy residents who want to stay there.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. So, this may take a little bit more time, but in 2013, when I was running for city council, I was walking around talking about things I was going to do, and one of it was to help improve affordable housing. And there were communities on the north, the south, and the east that was like, we don't want no more affordable housing. We don't need none of this Section 8 stuff. We got too much affordable housing. We don't want those folks.
So their mindset was affordable housing means Section 8.
Section 8. Affordable housing means those people. But I was talking about mixed income housing, things that Renee Glover, Egbert Perry, and others were talking about, how to make sure that the school, school principal, the school teacher, and the school bus driver, who all make different incomes, can still live in the same community, and their children can get the same amenities. That's a beautiful thing. That was a concept of that era that we want to carry into today. And so when people's perception is affordable housing is people that don't work or people that aren't, as enabling as others, that's a challenge. And I didn't see it that way. I grew up in Adamsville in a working class neighborhood with a mama that had one job and 2 kids, and it was very managing of her money to keep us alive each day. So I'm very, keen on anybody saying those people. So for me, it's about building affordable housing, mixed income housing throughout the city of Atlanta. That may look different. Some places are more dense than others. Some places we have to preserve units because they have too much abandoned and vacant housing. So we want to take those abandoned apartments that's been burned out, and we want to not just build something new next to it and still have this burnout. We want to go ahead and tear that down or renovate that and put people in it.
I want to clear this up for our audience, because when you talk about units and that 20,000 units, it's not just rental, not just like condos or apartments. You're talking about residents.
Yeah.
It could be even, is that
Single family homes as well. Yeah, so we're building some single family units too. So yeah, a unit could be an apartment, it could be a townhome, it could be a regular traditional single family house, a duplex. So the easier thing to build is a single family home, but it only gets you one unit, it only gets you one family. The more complicated deal structures are building these apartments that are 200, 300 units that takes 5, 6, sometimes 10 layers of financing from various places, and they take 24 to 36 months just in construction. So when you say you want to do 20,000 units of affordable housing, you can't build one by Friday. It takes you quite a while to build them.
And then there are some other optics around that. I want to get to that in a moment. But on the day of this original broadcast, this live broadcast, you're going to make some breaking news. I love when I can break news, particularly when it's correct. I always tell people, look, at Closer Look, we don't necessarily want to be first, we want to be right. But this is the case we're going to be first and right.
Yeah.
You've got some news about some major development coming out of the Atlanta urban development
today. So my team, Courtney English, John Majors, and the rest of them, we all came, and Josh Humphreys, we came up with this idea of the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation, which is a partnership between the city of Atlanta and Atlanta Housing, which essentially we are a developer. And we can get into deals and help make them go faster and make them complete where they might have failed before. And so today, this morning, we closed 3 deals. One was for the Proctor, which is right off of Donnelly Hollowell. Another is for West End Mall. They want to bury the lead and hide that one. Yeah. And another one is for 41 Marietta Street, which is repairing an old piece of property right there on Marietta, almost by Marietta and Peachtree.
Is that the old AJC building?
No, that's 143 Marietta. Okay. So the one I'm talking about is near that.
Okay.
And we're working on that one, 143 Alabama, the old AJC building. We're trying to get that closed and start getting some at least external improvements before 2026. But the West End Mall.
This is it, because I have covered this for years, and I think I've reported 3 or 4 different developers were going to come in, and then the deal fell through. You're going to make some history here.
We're going to make some history. You guys are going to hear this, you're going to read this. So essentially, we've closed the deal finally on West End Mall, which all parties have agreed to everything, including the city of Atlanta. We got the Beltline involved in it. We also have Atlanta Housing. We have all hands are in this to make this go, including the property owner is willing to sell. And we have a great development team, and they're minority owned, and that is minority led, and it's one of those good groups that have worked the community, gotten to what the community can agree to. That's some affordable housing, that's some hotel, it's also some commercial, which includes a grocer. So a lot of great things are going to come.
Okay, we've been down this road before.
Yes.
And for that community, because I talk to them all the time. So you're saying here right now, finally, Mall West End, we have a developer. It will be a live-work situation.
Yes, a live-work place.
And a hotel?
Yeah, one of the components that we wanted to make sure that we added in there was anything that brought value. And if you think about south of I-20, you don't have a single real hotel. So think about all the, and the AUC is right there, Morehouse School of Medicine, Spelman, etc. They have adjunct faculty. They have homecomings and graduations and all kinds of events. And then, business folks have things and family members. You think about all the money that's leaving West End when somebody has a church gathering or a family reunion and people are going to Midtown to get an apartment, to get a hotel, just to come back to West End. But now if we have a quality hotel, this would be an amenity.
Is there any danger of folks being displaced? I know there are some small businesses on that street. There's some small businesses inside currently Mall West End. Will there be some way for them to either stay and be part of the new development, or will they have to relocate?
No, that was something that was an added, component to the deal that we had to make happen. The community wanted it, we wanted it. We don't want any development that causes displacement. And that's a very difficult thing to do. It's easier to say than to do. And deals can get killed if you don't know how to produce that element. I mean, there's leaseholders right now. There are people who are leasing their space there, and so we have to be careful about their lease. And then what does their new lease look like in the new space? Are they in a space that works for them financially, or are they in a space that doesn't work for them, whether that's space-wise? So we have to be careful about every single current tenant that wants to continue on to the new development. And so we've crafted a plan that's going to make sure we take care of them as best we can.
How excited are you about this, and are you feeling more optimistic with this developer than you did in the past when I think it's Prusik and some other ones?
Yeah.
I think Tish Inspire, something like that.
Yeah.
Come through.
Right. This one we've been very, we've been on them, to put it lightly. We've sent them through the gauntlet of the community. They've gone to NPU meetings, to the neighborhood associations. They've listened attentively. They also have their financing in order. And the owner of the West End Mall, we had to have frank talk with them about pricing. And I might tell too much because I'm in just about all these deals. There's a a component to get things done. Everybody's got to give a little. There's no magic pills for these huge deals. You're gonna have to make sure that we live in a space of reality or the deal won't close. And so with the formula that we've created with AUD being a part of it, this is in the Beltline overlay. So we're utilizing Beltline TAD support. And there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration in order to have affordability for renters, affordability for the commercial tenants, and also to get the things that people want from a retail perspective. It's a lot to make these deals happen. So I see how people have tried in the past and it just didn't work out. The last one was in the works when I was becoming mayor, and I sat with those folks and we talked, and then it just didn't work because I guess there were some holes in the plan.
Are you comfortable in revealing the developer's name?
Well, we'll let all that get out once it. I haven't even actually did the
Were
signing
you supposed to
of
say
it.
all that?
Well, Rose Scott pulls it out of me, so
Speaking of development deals, because this was something else that was not in your administration, but with Microsoft.
Yeah.
And I covered it. And I interviewed the president of Microsoft, I think it's Brad
Right.
Stetson. And there was so much excitement about this, Mayor Dickens. And there was always talk about the jobs that were coming in, I think 10,000 jobs. And then it was halted. What's the latest with that? Because that's key for the Grove Park community.
Yeah.
That, much like we talk about the Mall West End is key for the West End, so is this project if it ever gets off the ground.
Yeah.
Are you told me, I think, you're gonna stay on Microsoft?
Yeah.
What's the latest with that?
Every single piece of dirt in Atlanta is personal to me. These deals hurt when they go away or when they don't fulfill their promises. So I was a city council member when Microsoft came about buying that land, and they had big hopes of 10,000 employees being there. That was before the pandemic, when the way people work changed, people were working from home, working remotely. And so Microsoft was like, hey, we've got 2,500 employees right there in Atlantic Station. Yeah, we might not need 10,000 anymore. And so we're not gonna have 7 building campuses with all this extras. We're gonna take another look at it. And that continued to wane. I become mayor, and our first conversation is, hey, we're right over here on Bankhead Highway. We had a goal of getting a nice grocery store, a nice pharmacy, and a great place to work. And I remember in the conversations when I was a city council member, it was because I was with TechBridge, they invited me there, and I was telling them that I don't want the headline to be Microsoft builds a big campus with 10,000 employees. I said, I want Microsoft to have the headline that 2,500 local people are trained to get to these great careers that Microsoft has. So I wanted to, it's gonna take 2 to 3 years to build out this campus. You can train everybody on how to do these jobs in 3 years. And they were like, yeah, let's sign up for that. So they signed up for programming to change lives and train people. And then the COVID happens, and then they back out of the deal. So to get more to right now, my last meeting with Microsoft was maybe 7 to 10 days ago.
Really?
I talk to Microsoft no more than every 60 days about where are you, and this is what I want, this is what the city needs, and I'm flexible on some of that, but what we don't want are these things, and this is that. And then we have people in the community that are constantly giving feedback, and so I think, Microsoft doesn't need the capital that comes from selling this at a market rate. This is me talking to heroes. My conversation with Microsoft is, what's the legacy of Microsoft in this dirt? What would you want to come about out of this? I know you don't want to have bought it for X and sell it for 2X, and that's not Microsoft's strategy, is it? They're like, no. I said, okay, so what can we come together for people of Atlanta to develop here that will be memorable, that folks will say Microsoft did a thing. So trying to inspire Microsoft to contributing to this deal in a way that contributes to the culture and vibrancy of Atlanta and to that area, making sure that we, of course, keep the affordable housing and the goal of having a grocery store on the whole Bankhead Highway, Donnelly Hollowell. There's not one grocery store and there's not one bank, and it's about a 7-mile stretch. Before I'm done, we're going to make sure that gets corrected.
We've talked about West End, we've talked about Rural Park, and those are historic legacy neighborhoods. Obviously, there are a lot here in Atlanta, but when it comes to big development, that is a driver that affects housing prices, whether it's rental or people trying to buy a new home. You mentioned your first apartment, $600, right?
Yeah.
Over off a high meal. You know, what worries you about a young Andre Dickens, a kid that's 20, 22 years old right now, who's about to graduate, wants to stay in Atlanta, wants to work in Atlanta, but housing may be that one metric. He's like, I don't know if I can find a job that will pay me that much. While I'm looking for a job, I'd like to stay in Atlanta.
Yeah, that worries me. The affordability crisis that we're in worries me. It means that we could become a have and have not society, where the wealthy continue to live and buy and absorb and do all they want to do in the society, and those that are less than wealthy are getting poorer because the cost of things are going up. So their relative income, that doesn't match the cost of things, and we're experiencing that. And I'm a part of, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, African American mayors, all across the country. I mean, I'm in a number of civic groups where we're talking about this and creating action plans around it. There's not a mayor in this country that's not worried about how these, how unaffordable it's becoming in their cities. And so the cost of construction, the bricks and sticks are expensive. The labor is even more, it's getting out of control because fewer and fewer people are actually working with their hands, building things.
And there's a shortage of construction workers as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a shortage of construction workers, shortage of construction know-how, construction equipment, and and the city is going vertical. We're going up in the sky, and there's fewer and fewer people that know how to do that. So we have a challenge that, quite frankly, I'm doing what I can as mayor by building and by bringing the money into it, by utilizing city land, by utilizing all the resources and knowledge that we have. But we still have to get incomes up. We still have to make sure that our teachers, our firefighters, our clerical workers, these people that work at the various places that we love, we need our folks that take care of all these things that we have in society. We need to increase their income. And then we have to then train vocational folks on how to do the construction, do the electrical, do the HVAC, because we're living in a society right now where the costs are going up, and we don't have anything to mitigate that cost unless we change altogether what we live in. And that is where container homes come to bear, and tiny homes and things like that. That's helping, but it's not exclusive to the solution center.
And when we come back, we'll take a break and we'll talk about not only partnerships, but also the various types of housing stock. And for folks that send me an email that said, we don't need any more single family or multifamily, this is your segment coming up, so get ready to start emailing me. This is Closer Look, and I'm in conversation with Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. We're back in a moment.
Are y'all happy? Y'all look
from WABE in Atlanta. I'm Rose Scott in conversation with Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens about housing affordability and Atlanta's approach to dealing with this. You mentioned land scarcity and high cost. That's obviously a factor. I'm gonna ask you this, is there some land still that Atlanta can purchase, you think, within the city? Is there still some land out there?
Yeah, we make strategic buys from time to time. I'm in conversations on a couple right now that hopefully we'll get what we want to be able to build affordable housing on that in some very key areas. We have conversations with property owners that are distressed. Everybody that owns an apartment complex isn't doing well, right? We look at them as the landlord, he or she is doing this, but some of them aren't doing well. So we bail them out and then we can make it affordable. That's a goal that I have, is to get rid of distressed properties that may be underperforming. Now, is there under or undeveloped land at all? Like just, it's not much, just, undisturbed dirt there.
With the properties that you talked about, which may not be doing well, we think of Forest Cove, which my colleague Stephanie Stokes talked about and did a wonderful reporting on. There are a lot of blighted properties within the city of Atlanta. Some will say this is because of the zoning and the ordinances haven't caught up. But you've had some legislation passed where you're really cracking down on these property zones of blighted property. And this was interesting to me, Mayor Dickens, because I did some research, and there are still properties from the Great Recession that were foreclosed on that are still boarded up. Because folks may be waiting for some big payday, I don't know, and they're really in Southwest Atlanta, parts of DeKalb County, zip codes where there's very low income residents living. With this new legislation that you all have, will you be able to effectively do something about these type of properties?
Yeah. So we came at this solution from a people-centric perspective. Folks living around blight, that's a psychological effect. It's harmful. Mm-hmm. It's not a victimless crime, right? So if you are a bad landlord, one that has boarded up properties, and all you do is change names on it when code enforcement chase you down, mm-hmm. right? They come in, code enforcement is like, you got a problem, you got to fix this up. And then they might put a Band-Aid on it, or they might sell it to their cousin, their brother, and switch it around. That's not a victimless crime. The victims are the school kids that walk past that to the bus stop. And
often activity that shouldn't be taking place sometimes.
Absolutely. There's unsavory actions that are happening in the shadows of those places. And then you'll see fires sometimes happen in those. And so we want to crack down on that, not to just beat up a bad landlord. That's only a portion of the rationale behind it. We want to fix it up so that people live near quality things, and then other people can live in those quality things. Mm-hmm. So we're going to landlords. Some of them are not intentionally bad actors. They're just broke, or they're just unable to fix it. And so we're saying, you've been owning this for X number of years and you haven't come up with a solution. Let us partner with you. There and us, the AUDC and other things. So we call it safe and secure housing. Our first one was Forest Cove, which was the worst of the worst. Mm-hmm. And it took legal battles, and we knew that Forest Cove going into it was going to be, this isn't an easy solution to something that's so ingrained with all those problems, and a landlord that wanted to fight. And so we took that fight to him, and here we are now coming on the other side of that. We're around 14 of a 15 round fight, but we will be victorious.
Is this a situation with Atlanta's housing crisis? Is this really also key on, we talk about partnerships, we'll talk more about that, but is the key really also to have more regulatory and zoning? I mean, things that you have on the books, laws that people have to adhere to.
Yeah, so it's more teeth in our code, more bite in our code. So there's a process called NREM. I'm gonna get real nerdy on that. So you got administrative NREM, you have judicial NREM. Administrative NREM is the thing that they danced around for years. So that's where we come to you and you say, we want to shut down your property and make you have to clean it up or what have you. Well, administrative NREM has just enough teeth to scare you, and you can fix it up or not. And then you'll get fines and things like that. But you're hoping for a big payday that'll overcome those fines as a developer. Judicial NREM has way more teeth, and now we are a primary note holder on your property. So if I tear it down and it costs me $25,000 to tear down that property, that's your expense and it's top of your balance sheet. And now your insurance company, everybody else is like, you gotta pay the city. You might as well just sell it to the city, etc. So the judicial process is gonna be much more substantive. It takes more burden, takes more lawyers, takes more coordination, but the community deserves us to go the hard route to get the best outcome.
Let's talk about partnerships. I know you mentioned Invest Atlanta, and I know Quest also is one, and there are other nonprofit builders here. Do you need more of the, and you talked about Star C, they were on a few weeks ago. Do you need more partners like that, everyone at the table, to reach this 20,000?
Yes. Those are my friends, right?
Why do you think people that ain't your friends? To be a part of this.
Nonprofit developers, oh my God, they are a godsend. The reason why is because they're on mission. Mm-hmm. They are on mission. And when they do deals, they don't want them to ever stop being affordable. So they have, their affordability is 99 years and then some, right? So churches, religious institutions, nonprofits, city property, government property, those are great to develop on because they have the right mission, they're not profit driven, and they also are going to stay on that mission longer term than the tax incentives allow. Tax incentives sometimes only 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. Star C, Quest, and these guys. So I want more and more developers, whether they're nonprofit developers or for-profit developers that are just they have this heart to go to the deals that are complex and sometimes take a little longer because a lot of red tape with government financing. But these developers that stick at it and stick to it, they mean a lot to me because we won't hit these 20,000 units without them.
I've asked this question before to I think every mayor since I've been here at WABE, and it's about protecting the community. When these big developments come in, and I know that some folks do not like these binding contracts with the community.
Yeah.
But should that become part of the norm? Holding someone like a Microsoft or anybody else to something, because it's so easy to pull out and say, it's just not going to work, and then we're gone.
Yeah. Whenever they use city money or any kind of government money, yes, I make sure of it, which is how we're able to hold their feet to the fire. Microsoft came in and bought it with their own land and everything else that was all theirs. They bought it through straw buyers and eventually, pulled all that land together through a strategy that, worked for them until it didn't. And so I think that, that's where I created the inclusionary zoning policy that was started when I was a city council member for the Beltline and for the west side near Vine City English Avenue around when the stadium was being constructed. And then we grew that to Grove Park area when we did the big west side quarry, the park, the reservoir. So now around these areas on Donnelly Hollow, we have some requirements for affordability. But I really would like for our developers to be community partners and be community minded, to include things about small businesses being able to have lower cost rent, as well as affordable housing in their mix.
Are you ready for the T word?
What?
I think it is.
T.
As relates to housing.
Well.
Transit.
Oh, transit. Okay. I thought you were talking about that other guy. The bad guy. Oh, the T word. I'm like, what you talking about, bro?
Oh, wow. I know what's on your mind. We'll talk about that too. Let's talk about transit and mobility. Okay. All right. Now, and let's just get on out here. Mayor Dickens. Yeah. When it comes to the other word, the B word, Beltline.
Beltline. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want you to answer this as the mayor of Atlanta and as a regular resident citizen of Atlanta. Okay, Mayor Dickens. Are you in favor and will you push for light rail on the Beltline?
My answer to that is consistently yes, I'm in favor of it, and yes, I'm pushing for it. Some people got misconstrued about 6 months ago when I talked about we need to do the analysis. Mm-hmm. The last time there's not a single soul in the city of Atlanta, even the ones that yell and type real fast, that they hate certain things.
I get those emails.
Yeah, they type real fast. They know Twitter, they know Facebook, they know Instagram. They talk a lot, but they couldn't tell you, even with a calculator, how much it would cost. They can't tell you. They won't tell you how much it costs to construct. They can't tell you how much it will cost to operate. They can't tell you how burdensome it would be to put it in, how much it will cost the businesses. I mean, we had a water situation that lasted 2 days, and I put $7.5 million in the hands of small businesses. Imagine constructing a light rail on the Beltline right now. I would have to come up with a summary of how to deal with the challenges with that. So going back to the first two answers to the two questions you asked me, am I in favor? Yes. Am I committed to pushing it? Yes. But am I sober and fiscally responsible and somebody who takes every job, every decision I make very seriously? I don't have to type real fast to out do what everybody else is doing on the internet, say, get the Beltline rail now. I'm saying because I gotta live with the situation of, yes, go for it and we can't pay for it. Yes, go for it, we can't operate it. Yes, go for it and it's gonna cost millions or billions to small businesses while it's under construction. So we have to calculate that. So then I go to the right places to get those dollars to do it, or get the patience to be able to endure it as it's happening.
Any idea in terms of the dollars then? Because then this goes to, look, and Andre Dickens, who's a resident, who's a citizen, I'm waiting for the Beltline because then maybe a transit, because I can get from here to there, maybe get a better job. For those individuals who say light rail could really change my household, because I'll be able to get from one side without taking MARTA and waiting for the bus.
Yeah.
So what's that number then for that individual?
So we are in the process of doing that. We have hired engineering firms, for lack of a better word, consulting firms, to go out there and do the cost analysis of those things that I just mentioned. How much it will cost to construct it for the 22-mile loop or some version of that, whether it's, sometimes it may not follow exactly along the exact Beltline, because there's some difficult points on the Beltline to get the train next to that. Look at how much it would cost if we were to do light rail, bus rapid transit, pods, which are like these glorified golf carts, autonomous things, and any other form of mobility, to look at the cost of operating it as well. You don't want to ride the Beltline if it's going to cost you $25 a mile, a ride, etc. And we are still in a state that does not fund its public transit. We have New York hopes of transit, but New York State supports the New York transit system. Illinois supports the Chicago transit system, et cetera, et cetera. BART is, in the Bay Area, San Francisco, is supported by California. We do not have support for MARTA, nor will we have support for the Beltline as it currently stands. So it's all at the fare box. It's literally everything that you pay will operate that service. So therefore, that's why I'm one of Murphy's Crossing, which will be the very first new infield transit station in the city's history.
An infield station, not a full MARTA station.
No, it'll be a MARTA station. They call it infield because
it's in between.
It's in between.
Okay.
It'll be in between a station. It'll be the first one on the Beltline. So you will basically ride MARTA from the world's busiest airport, and your first stop to get to the Beltline will be Murphy's Crossing Station, which is going to be transit-oriented development as well as a MARTA station.
Let me ask you this, because I'll talk, and Ryan Gravel, who was the architect of the Beltline when he was at Georgia Tech, we talk about this a lot. Did we miss the boat by not implementing light rail early on before all this other development got going and focused on that? Because it's always been, according to his thesis statement, because I read it, it's always been part of the Beltline to have light rail on there.
Yeah.
But we didn't start there.
We did not start there. And Ryan Gravel came up with a fantastic plan of action. He was he was very visionary, ahead of his time. As a Georgia Tech student that came up with this thesis, and then he followed through with it to work with the administration to get some things done. But these are hard things. I don't play Monday morning quarterback because now I'm the quarterback making hard decisions, and I know somebody second guesses those. It is phenomenal to even have what we have right now with the Beltline. When I'm at the White House talking to Pete Buttigieg and others, they're like, "This is amazing. This is the largest infrastructure project in the state of Georgia right now."
And a lot of cities are trying to copy it.
A whole lot of trying to copy it.
St. Louis, my hometown.
Yeah, people want the Beltline. The Beltline gets a lot of visitors. Clyde His and his team takes a lot of state and city leaders from across the country around the Beltline, and they're in awe of just the current trail. But to remind people that we have to have some form of transit on the Beltline, because that's where it started, we must, and I'm committed to it. Is it going to be light rail the way that the pictures were drawn in 2008 and 2010 and 2012 before a single, set of, trail was built? Is it going to look like exactly what we dreamed it to look like? I think that modern technology needs to be where we're going. So whatever drawing you had in 2008, you might want to, in 2024, get some 2050 looking plans, because that's the money you're going to be, the bond that we're going to do whatever we do is going to be a 30-year bond. It's not going to be a 5, it's not, you see what I'm saying? I have to think about future versus what somebody's desiring now from a picture they saw in 2008 or 2010. We have to live in the real world and be visionary, but also be very specific around dollars and cents and numbers, because, you know, somebody's going to judge us on that later too.
The Beltline, and depending on which neighborhood you're in, on what day, you'll see those signs in the yard that say no Beltline rail. You'll see other signs that say fund public transit. When you look at this project, the Beltline project, it's had different leadership throughout the years. How happy are you with the current leadership, with the way they are developing, and then they're partnering more with the city as opposed to, I think, early on when this first came about in the mid-2000s, it was, some people were for it, some weren't. I know Mayor Franklin, and I know all the mayors since then have been, everyone's been happy about the Beltline. Yeah. And some people are like, well, but they should do this, they should do that. How happy are you with the way this organization is developing?
I think the story of the Beltline is going to be one of the best stories of the city of Atlanta, because it has the highs and the lows, and it has the challenging conversations. Clyde Higgs is a fantastic leader. He went from being the COO of the Beltline to being the CEO of the Beltline. He's hit all my affordability goals, the recent ones, right? We are moving, we're breaking ground or cutting ribbons of affordable housing along the Beltline. No, it's not, filled with affordable housing, and people will criticize it for that. But that should have been thought of in the very beginning. They created an affordable housing trust fund in the beginning of the Beltline because they didn't know exactly that it was going to be this. That trust fund didn't do enough. I created the inclusionary zoning policy as a city council member that requires 10 or 15% of the units to be set aside for affordability. And that's what you're seeing now when you got over 1,000 units. When you're jogging or walking along these beautiful apartments, 15% of them or 10% of them, depending on the area median income, are set aside for families that are, firefighters, police officers, teachers.
Is that 10 to 15%? Is that enough, Mayor Dickens?
Well, it's easy for us to judge whether or not it's enough when we don't have to pencil out those deals. And earlier in this conversation, we just had a conversation about 4 deals at West End failing. So we can keep West End as it is, or we can find us a deal that works at the numbers that work. The same thing with every project that's along the Beltline. We can pie in the sky and we can judge, or we can wait, or we can move forward with 10 or 15 or 20%. Now we have some developments along the Beltline that are 50% affordable, some or even 100% affordable. So, but what I'm getting at is going back to your question around the Beltline. There were trial and error things that they were doing that worked, some didn't, and that's all right because it's tough. But now we're in a place where 85% of the Beltline is under construction right now, and we are going to finish out the trail and before the time that we said we were.
Before that 2030?
Yeah, the trail will be finished before 2030, and you'll be able to go before the World Cup, before 2026, before March.
Now be careful because some mayors have made declarations and didn't come true. So you sure you want to continue with this sentence?
Yeah, I want to continue with this. I like a challenge. I'd much rather have the bullseye than to, like I said, 20,000 units of affordable housing. The minute I said that, folks were like, "What? How are you gonna hit that?" And we got 5,000 already built, and we got 5,000 in construction. So we're gonna be able to.
You have 5,186 that are delivered and completed, and you have 4,473 that are under construction.
Yeah.
Funded.
So almost 5.
Almost
5.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. First of all, we got data now. You see that? We have moved into at least the 90s or the 2000s. We got charts and graphs and data. But the point is, every day we move these numbers and we study these because we're going to be held accountable to that. So going back to your accountability on the Beltline, you'll be able to go from north of Piedmont Park up there, like almost Ansley. You'll be able to go all the way from Ansley all the way around to Reservoir to the west side park.
That announces the study that you're having done. If it comes back that, look, it may be too much to have what we call light rail, maybe you need to have some other type of option. And you have to stand up before the city, in the state of city address, whenever that is, and tell folks you can't afford light rail for now. You're willing to mention the bullseye and the target. You willing to stand up there and take that heat for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of the job is sharing in the good news and sharing in the not so good news. Before I do that, I will be consulting with every single person that we can, from those that help to create the Beltline to those that are right now in current leadership and everybody in the community. We're in a time where some folks are saying no to rail, some folks are saying yes to rail. Some folks are saying keep it just as it is, and some are saying, let's go further into our transit bag and find something else. I'm here saying I want transit, and I'm going to try to find out a way to get that done, and we're pushing towards it. Every single thing that we're doing now costs more than it did 5 minutes ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I remember when I created Inclusion Arizona, and I'm hush on this, it was $175,000 per unit was what we said was the cost for a single unit of affordable of housing. So if you saw something anywhere in the city of Atlanta, you put $175,000, you pretty much had a 1-bedroom. Now that's about $330,000. That's in less than 10 years. $330,000. That almost doubled. So whatever number somebody gave us in 2008, 10, or 12 on to do the Beltline, that number's probably triple now.
Speaking of numbers, because Atlanta continues to lead this region in terms of population growth, the city of Atlanta proper. So when folks are moving in, they're looking for housing. Do we have enough of this varied stock? Maybe more micro living. We talk about single family, multifamily. What is your preference? You want to mix, right? But everybody doesn't want to mix. Are we going to see some tiny homes, some micro homes, containers, which are very popular? Maybe a mixture of that, but also it goes back to the mindset. There are people with the not in my backyard neighborhood.
That is a thing of Atlanta that is showing its face all the time right now. It's not in my backyard. They like it when they go visit.
Right.
They say, "Oh, look at those tiny homes. That's the 81 when I was
micro."
Micro.
It's micro there.
I know I can't keep up. Those are so nice. That'd be good for my daughter or my son. Or that's cool for them. Oh, you can't put that in my neighborhood.
But that's key, right?
That is key. And then, but there's another side too, which is, and I get in trouble for this. How many people want roommates now? So
I live with a cat and I'm fine.
Right. But you have a great job here at WABE. Folks want, there are people who tell me I need an apartment, these $2,000 unit apartments, and no, I don't want no roommate. And I'm saying, well, I'm building affordable housing. I'm going to do my part, but you might want to get in a 2-bedroom and have a roommate that can cut into this cost. No, we're all victims of society. We all play on that internet and want to look cool every day too, and have our own space and I just think that there's a lot of individual thought in this society of collectives. And so there's folks who they got big mansions that don't want tiny homes near them or micro homes near them. And there are folks who desire to have, 1,500 square feet apartment all to themselves. And want it to be affordable with a very, very nice swimming pool and granite countertop. And we'll do all we can. But when we can't, you better get a roommate.
Based on everything we've talked about this hour, how do you measure then the successes and the still challenges? And do you need another term then for this to all play out?
I didn't hear the first question because the second question was talking about my second term. So yes. All right, go back to whatever you was talking about. So yes, or my second term.
How do you measure these successes of all these initiatives? Because that number, that 5,000 number that we have, 5,000 number plus, I mean, still quite a long way from 20,000.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of our administration. I'm very proud of how fast we got going on these things. We're standing here now at 2.5 years in office. It goes by very quickly, and every day is a challenge. There's, distractions, there's new interests, there's, political landscapes, national, et cetera. To be able to stay focused on public safety, affordable housing, youth development, and small businesses, to do all that as much as we're doing it, and to have quality development in neighborhoods that have been long starving for development. Earlier, I talked about folks that didn't want affordable housing, but they also wanted a grocery store and they wanted some amenities. Well, the growth of these housing developments that we're doing are bringing new residents, which is then bringing more rooftops that allows for these grocers and other amenities to come into the place. And so we're helping neighborhoods through a strategy of the group project is what I call it. So I'm very proud of it. Very proud that our violent crime is down. I'm very proud that our youth are having the time of their lives. I'm very proud of these things. So I want another term to be able to, one, see us hit 20,000 units, because when you see 5,000 have already been built and you know it takes 24 months at a minimum to build one of these things. I've only been mayor for about 28 months, 29 months or something like that. So it's very difficult. You need a term to be able to get all this done. And I want more people to partner. Rose, it's difficult to do this job if you got to do it for 55 Trinity only. That's City Hall.
Sure. City
Hall can't lead the whole thing by itself. We have to have partners.
Mayor Franklin, sewer mayor, she loved that title.
Yeah.
Will you be the affordable housing mayor? Will that be your legacy? Also, I want to say this. Mayor Franklin also told me one time, if you worry about your legacy, you don't have one.
Right.
So I don't know if you worry about your legacy, but it will be tied to what you're able to do with affordable housing.
Yeah. So affordable housing is my love language, because I believe people can, a quality home environment can help so many things. Youth can get educated, families can be cultivated, small businesses around those homes can thrive because people are there and they're able to afford more things than just their rent. But it's really, I'm not talking about legacy, but I'm talking about the city that I was born and raised in, the city that I love. Having people enjoy this city without so much stress just to get by. So affordability is a tool. Job training to get good jobs in this competitive environment is a tool. Being able to live in a society, national, that's violent, getting that out of my city.
Sure.
So folks is what I'm talking about. People being able to live is what I'm gonna. When I walk off that stage and high five whoever the next crazy person to take on this thing, Keisha left me a nice little note in there. I'm gonna leave them a note, and it's gonna be like this at the end of it too.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens, thank you so much for coming and taking the time. I appreciate a good conversation, taking a deep dive into affordable housing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, audience who's here at WABE too. And stay tuned to 90.1. Stay tuned to WABE from Atlanta. I'm Rose Scott.